Well, John, game 2 was spectacular. And of course, but really the highlight of the series so far has been Jaden McDaniels going down the entire Nuggets roster. Mm-hmm. And, hey, this guy watches too much TV. This guy eats a terrible diet. None of them play any defense. They have terrible taste in music. I just think he should have stopped before he got to Alex English. Leave Alex English alone, okay?
Right, exactly, man. It's interesting and fun because Jaden McDaniels is sort of introducing himself to the world right now, with the comments that he made after game 2 about no one being or everyone being a bad defender on Denver. If you followed the Wolves and you've kind of been around him for any stretch of time, you know that he is capable of saying those types of things. He just doesn't care about anyone's feelings. He doesn't care about offending or riling up or doing any of that. He tells you what's on his mind. Now, he is unlike Anthony Edwards in that Anthony is very loquacious, very kind of just outward and colorful and charismatic. Jaden is just so deadpan that you kind of do the, wait a minute, did he just say that? And nope, yeah, he just said that. And so that's the way that Jaden is, but it does add some more spice to an already spicy rivalry, which I love. Like, I love that in this day and age where I think people are too careful sometimes about what they say, and worried about ramifications. Like, we're just jumping right into it. Like, let's just throw all of the gasoline on the fire that we can and make this thing as emotional as possible, because it's turning into be, one hell of a matchup, in these playoffs. So it's great.
It's great stuff. We'll get to the rivalry here in a second. We do want to let you know this is the Jon Krawczynski Show. This is part of TalkNorth.com. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studio. We're presented to you by Lexus, Wayzata, and Maplewood. We also want to welcome Great Clips, great new sponsor for this program and some other programs around Talk North. Check out Russo and LaPanta on hockey, Lavelle, Roy Smalley, myself on baseball, Don Mitchell Show, Mark Rosen Show, Jeff Diamond on football, Alec Lewis on football, et cetera, et cetera. We appreciate everybody who listens. This is, I feel like in both hockey and in the NBA, we are blessed to have the best possible first-round matchup. First-round matchups can be just nothing. We have the best one. This is fantastic. It's steeped in an earned rivalry. Teams really don't like each other. Teams play completely different styles. The Nuggets are great offensively, and as someone said recently, terrible defensively. Though the Wolves are just a mess.
All over the place.
A beautiful mess. They can be really good. They can be terrible at any given moment. This is just great drama.
Yeah, this is really what you want. Yeah, I think, like, if you just are talking about what is the Wolves' best chance to advance, you probably would have wanted the Lakers or the Rockets. But if you want theater, if you want drama, if you want real stakes, and if you want kind of that kind of thing, this is the matchup of the first round in the playoffs, no question. I know we've got some other series that are 1-1, but none of them have the energy that this one does. And I just think it is so important for this league to develop these types of kind of rivalries and these types of matchups beyond the Lakers Celtics, beyond, kind of the obvious ones with maybe some of the marquee franchises. If they really lean into the Wolves and Nuggets, like as a bankable, sellable street fight every single night, I mean, I don't see why any basketball fan would not want to tune into this. You have a very proud Nuggets team that is incredibly talented, that won all of these games down the stretch, that they're maybe, I would say, personality-wise, just a little bit quieter and a little bit more business-like with Jokic and Murray and Gordon. And, Aaron Gordon was asked after the game about the Wolves trash talk, and he's just like, I don't have any time for that, brother, kind of moving on. And then you have the Wolves who want to not only beat you, but also want to tell you about it from start to finish. And the kind of oil and water mixture of the personalities of these two teams just adds to the intrigue of the matchup altogether. And the Timberwolves absolutely believe that they can beat the Nuggets, even though they are decided underdogs. And that belief sort of just kind of flows out of their pores. And so when they do have success, they stunt on it, and it might not be the most sportsmanlike thing or whatever, but it brings extra heat to the kitchen. And so that's what you need. You need teams that do not get along. You need teams that look at each other and that are actually just tired of seeing each other. And that's what they're at right now, I think. I think the Nuggets are tired of these yapping Wolves, and I think the Wolves are tired of, looking at Jamal Murray and Jokic and saying and being told that they are not, they don't belong on the same court as them. And so you put all of that in the pot, and it's going to boil over. And I can't wait for Game 3 on Thursday night.
We all get asked to do pre-series predictions, and then you watch a couple games, and something's going to alter your perspective. We're now 1-1. Has anything that's happened the first two games altered the way you view this series? And do you think one team or the other has any real advantage at this moment?
I picked Wolves in 7 to start. I was anticipating a knockdown, drag out fight, and I think that's what we've gotten so far. You could argue that the Wolves could easily be up 2-0 right now, because I don't think they played well at all in Game 1, and they were within 2 late in the game. And you could argue the Nuggets should be up 2-0 right now with just some of the 19-point lead and the way that they wore down. I think that one thing that has surprised me a little bit early on, or what surprised me coming out of Game 2, was it looked like the Timberwolves wore the Nuggets down, and that by the middle of the fourth quarter, Murray and Jokic were very tired. And I did not expect that in Game 2 of round 1 of the playoffs. Like, I thought that they would have more energy, and maybe they will kind of dig deep and find it, and you get a couple of days off and they'll snap right back to it. But that part of things in the Wolves' favor really did surprise me a little bit. And then I would also say that in the Nuggets' favor, I think that they have another level to reach that we have not seen yet. And they've had a few stretches of really high efficiency, run the two-man game with Jokic, hit threes in the corner with Brown or Gordon or things like that. And they've looked good for a couple of stretches. But this is a team that is machine-like in its offensive execution. And we still haven't seen that for a real sustained amount of time in either game. And so if they find that, then they will have the upper hand. But I do expect, Jim, that this is going to be another series like 24 where there's a huge haymaker thrown and one team is knocked down. And you're like, oh boy, the other team has the upper hand. And then the team comes back and, maybe the Nuggets win by 15 on Thursday night. And then maybe the Wolves come back and win by 20 on Saturday night. I think it's going to be so many twists and turns kind of going over these next several games that these two teams just know each other too well. It's hard for either one to really get on top of each other. And so I'm just still prepared for a long series that is going to just take hard rights and hard lefts, and who knows where it's going to finish up.
What's the David Adelman effect? Mike Malone was a championship coach when the Wolves took down the Nuggets 2 years ago. How does Adelman change the calculus here?
Yeah, I would say that if you look at sort of the mentalities of both, and I know David Adelman really well. I know Michael Malone some because Wolves played him so many times. It seems like from afar that Michael Malone is a little bit more, let's say, combustible, but I think that's good and bad. And one is it's good because he is a fighter, I think he gets his team to take on some of that mentality, but it can also wear the team out a little bit. as he's kind of really getting into them when things aren't going well, as he's trying to poke the bear to get them engaged in the battle. Whereas Adelman is, I think, a little bit more of a thinker and a little bit more of a kind of pragmatic coach who just is kind of really focused on, hey, let's execute. Let's stay focused. Let's not lose our cool. We have the better team. Let's just stay with it that way. And so I think I believe in the Nuggets sort of meeting their identity a little bit more under David Adelman than I do under Michael Malone. I just will be interested to see now that how, now the Wolves have not only won a game, but have also showboated. Like, does David go down the road of, hey, look at what these guys are saying, and you really try to stoke fires? Or does he say, guys, don't get caught up in all of that BS. Let's just play our game and we'll be okay. And so I think there's a little bit of a test here for David in his young career now of how they respond after, quite frankly, an inexplicable collapse, after that first quarter in game 2.
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating to be around Michael Malone in 2024 because I felt like you went into that series and he was thinking, we're going to repeat. We're going to take care of the Wolves. We're going to repeat, and I'm going to be a legend. And he was positive and he was engaging and he gave great answers to every question. By the end of the series, he hated everybody. He was bitching about every question. That's a stupid question. I mean, I don't know I've ever seen anybody's personality change that much in the course of one series.
Yeah, he definitely wears his heart on his sleeve. And so when things are going well, when things are not going well, it. And I do wonder, and again, I really like Michael Malone. I think he's going to do a great job at North Carolina. Like I think he's a really good coach. But I do wonder about that series in particular, with all of the ups and the downs that series went through, if by the end, everyone kind of in that staff and in that locker room was sort of like sick of hearing each other. And they really hit a wall in the second half of game 7 that they could not sort of summon the last bit of fight. And it felt like a team that had reached its end. And so like how David Adelman then differs in how he handles the ups and the downs of a series like this could be the difference in the Nuggets surviving versus the Nuggets kind of falling apart.
Yes. We have so much more to get to about the series. Such a great series to talk about. Let's remind everybody we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
The Aquarius Home Services in Connecticut Customer Appreciation and Open House event is Friday, May 1st through Sunday, May 3rd. We're talking huge savings, like out of this world, tell your neighbors huge. Save big on heating and cooling systems, water heaters, generators, water treatment systems, and more. Plus, food, prizes, and fun for everyone. It's the Aquarius and Connecticut Open House, May 1st through 3rd in Little Canada at 694 and 35E. Details at aquariushomeservices.com.
Here's John for Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood.
If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with 2 great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
We also want to welcome and thank Great Clips.
A great haircut is always a mood booster, but it's even better when it's convenient, too. That's why I love online check-in at Great Clips. I just check in from my phone and get a ready next text when I'm up next. Plus, with the convenient hours at Great Clips salons, I can get a haircut even when I'm really busy. So if your hair and your mood could use a boost, download the app today. Great Clips. It's gonna be great.
I thought one of the most stunning moments in the recent history of this rivalry was Jokic going to the lane, keep situation, fourth quarter, one of the great, touch shooters of all time. He's going to make 90% chance he's going to hit that floater, and he tries to force a pass between 2 Wolves. They lose the ball. Was that Rudy getting into his head?
I think it was, Jim, and it's hard for me to say that because I do believe that Jokic is probably the best offensive player that's ever played this game. And so to think of that, and especially to think of all of the success that he has had against Rudy in his career, for some reason in that game, it did look like Rudy got to him in some way, shape, or form. He was 1 for 7 from the field at that point in the fourth quarter, 1 for 8 for the game against Rudy. Prior to that decision where he passed up the floater and gave it to Brown, there was another play where he kind of tried to back into the lane and tried like the Sombor shuffle, like turnaround shot, but Rudy was there. And so he had to do all of these twists and turns, and it looked like he was indecisive. It looked like he didn't know what to do. And this guy has a supercomputer in his brain and always knows what to do. And so it just seemed like that computer was glitching a little bit in the fourth quarter of game 2. And I think Rudy Gobert deserves just all of the credit in the world for that. We heard Anthony Edwards after the game say, look, I told Rudy, we are not sending help. We're going one-on-one, and you take that challenge. And that was the same day that Rudy finished 4th in Defensive Player of the Year voting, and a distance 4th. And I think that there was very much motivation on his part to prove his worth and his merit still. And you just saw a completely under control defender getting in the way of Jokic. And so even when, in that instance that you're talking about, Jim, even when he gets past Rudy and it's him and Ant essentially, and a wide open look at the floater, he's just wasn't used to seeing that look in this quarter. And so I think he expected more of a contest because he'd been contested on everything else. And so then he slipped it to Braun. Braun misses 1 of 2 free throws, and it turned out to be a huge moment in the game. But yes, that was just a completely surprising thing that I think was a byproduct of how Gobert had played the previous 8 minutes that Jokic was on the floor. That was, we're talking about a generational defensive player in Gobert, and I just would you'd be hard pressed to find a better 8-minute stretch of defense that he's ever played in his life that he did in that game too. It was unbelievable.
And also said, "Don't foul him," which is easy for him to say, but it's also the right thing to say, because if you reach on Jokic, he's going to find a way to draw the foul.
Yeah, and you know what I loved about that message though too, Jim, was that is putting into his head and really to the entire team's head, because Julius Randle heard him say that, like a lot of people heard him say that was getting the Timberwolves out of the victim mentality of these referees are screwing us. Mm-hmm. And that is a problem that this team has had over the years and this season, is that when calls are going against them, and I think that was part of it in game 1 as well, and even in the first quarter of game 2, we saw Ant go to official in the first quarter after like the third 4-point play that the Nuggets had, and he was talking to official and said they have 3 4-point plays. Well, you were following them on those shots. Like maybe one of them was a little bit questionable.
I thought one of them was a bad call.
Yeah, but by and large, they were in the wrong position, and they were committing fouls. And so in that moment, as they're trying to complete this comeback, Anthony Edwards is saying to Rudy, the referees are not against you. You are bringing this on yourself. And I think by saying it, he's saying that to himself as well. Of like, we have got to understand that we are committing too many fouls. And that just really puts the right mindset in to play defense. You cannot go out there and say, man, these referees are calling terrible calls. We've got to just, overcome it. It's like, no, stop fouling.
Stop fouling.
Like,
stop reaching. If you reach, you're going to call for a foul in the modern NBA.
And so, like, I just thought, there were so many instances all game long of Anthony Edwards being just an incredible leader for this group, both by action and words. But that moment was a crystallization of what he is bringing in the playoffs. Like, this is playoff Ant right now, and he is recognizing how much they need Rudy Gobert and how focused he has to be on the task and not about anything else that could possibly affect what was going on the court.
And to state the obvious, is playing with a painful knee and not complaining at all about it.
It's I tell, like, there was 3 times during the game. Marcus Thompson is my colleague at The Athletic. We're sitting next to each other, and I just looked over at him and I just I can't even believe that he's playing right now. When you saw him in the first quarter, really not being able to move at all, and I'm guessing that as the game goes on, the knee loosens up and adrenaline flows and he's able to do it. But like, let's make no mistake about what we're seeing here from Anthony Edwards. He is hurt. Like, he is, that knee, and that's not structural, but like, it's in pain, and it's in a lot of pain. And so he is having to fight through a level of discomfort that is, beyond what he normally plays through. And to see the way that he managed that pain, but then also the way that he did not let that pain get in the way of his aggressiveness going to the basket, of his, blocking shots, of all of those things, that's the kind of sort of toughness that an athlete displays that earns him credibility in the locker room. And he didn't need to earn more, but it cements it. Like, that was as close to an inspiring performance as you can see, when just knowing how much he's going through, and yet he is out there playing 40 minutes and picking his spots defensively to really affect the game, and then attacking the rim against the Nuggets team that has nothing for him, going to the basket, not settling for threes. Like, it's just it's awe-inspiring stuff, man. He is really hurting right now, and he's pushing through it, and that's all you want from your marquee player.
I feel like when he drives, he can kind of choose how to elevate and go off his left leg and mitigate the right knee pain. I'm wondering if the right knee pain is bothering him on his jump shot, or if he's just rusty because he hasn't played much the last month.
Yeah, I think it's probably a little of both, Jim. I do think there's some rust there. But I also do think that he doesn't have the same sort of lift on his jumper because of that knee. And so, he's still getting to his step back. He's still elevating on the turnaround and things like that. But when he does do those things, he makes the move, and then it's like, and then he shoots. But there's not that fluidity right now, at least, that just allows him to smoothly go into whatever he wants. And so I think he's trying to figure out how to play through that part of it. You're right, though, about the driving. You see him driving left a lot and elevating off the left leg. He's still not, I don't think, at a point where he can really get up and then throw down a huge dunk like he has in the past, but he has enough burst and enough sort of resourcefulness around the rim so that if he gets by his defender, he knows that Jokic isn't going to do much with him at the rim, and that he can get there and score. And so it hurts, it's painful, but it's also very productive. And so that's why you saw him do it a lot in game 2. And I think the hope is that as this series goes along, as he gets a little bit more wind back, as he gets some of that rust knocked off, maybe the jumper will start to come with it as well.
Yeah, you have to hope, because at some point he's just going to have to make some big shots from the outside, I think, to win this series. Let's get to more on Rudy. First, want to remind you that TSR Injury Law was probably our first big sponsor, really got us going, the network and this show. We will always be appreciative of that. We had Steve Terry on to preview this series, and as I'm always reminded, he gets to places on the floor we don't always get. He knows people in the executive suites. He knows that organization very well, and he's a super fan. Anyway, but the important thing is, if you're ever injured, call 612-TSR-TIME. They'll take good care of you. 612-TSR-TIME. And we just trust these people. You should just trust these people if you ever need them. 612-TSR-TIME. Now here's John for True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. go to truevision.com, set up your free consultation. When you go in and go through the consultation and try to find the right vision correction methods for you, you will be just blown away, as I was, by how helpful, how thorough the examination is, how the people are so friendly and so warm, and they walk you through every option that you do have. And there's no pressure. They just want to get you to the right answer that works for you. I had LASIK at True Vision about 2 years ago now, and I am still seeing clearly. Life is so much better now. It's just easier without the hassles of contacts and eyeglasses. And I have nothing but the great people at True Vision to thank for that. So go to truevision.com, set up your free consultation, go on in there, go through the steps, find the right methods for you, and then get on with living your life. It is great. True Vision in Bloomington.
At the end of the show, we'll do a Twitter question sponsored by sglambchops.com. What's going on at SG Lamb Chops?
Yeah, go to sglambchops.com, use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off any of the gear that you can get there. We're talking hoodies, hats, t-shirts, shorts, pants, sweaters. I was wearing my Lamb Chops hoodie, my gray Lamb Chops hoodie out in Denver. Got a couple of compliments from it. And then it was fun because I was at the airport coming home. Jordan Dye, who is one of the founders of Lamb Chops, was there, and we were wearing the same sweatshirt. And also, when you're there, a lot of Wolves fans notice Lamb Chops because you see Lamb Chops all around Target Center. It's kind of like a basketball community thing for fans. If you're a fan of basketball, you wear Lamb Chops, and then you pass each other, in the concourse at Target Center or out in the North Loop, and you give yourself a little bit of nod because everyone gets it. They are a local company that is embedded in this community, and just great people making great clothes that you can wear and dress up, that you can wear to lounge around in. So go to sglambchops.com, use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops.
So where should Rudy have finished in the Defensive Player of the Year award?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you ask Rudy, he is very realistic with what Wembanyama has become. He is the best defensive player in the league right now. Wembanyama is. He deserved to win the award. I think that Rudy believes he should have been in the top three, the finalists. And so you had Chet Holmgren and Ausar Thompson, both really good defenders on really good teams. And I think that is where Chris Finch's messaging after the game and before the game really did make sense, because Chet and Thompson both played for the number one team in the West and the number one team in the East. And so Finch said that, hey, we as a team failed Rudy because we kind of stumbled down the stretch to the 6th seed. And I think that kind of convinced some voters to go elsewhere with their vote. And I mean, can you really argue those two guys? They're both great defenders. No, I mean, but I do think that you could put Rudy over Ausar Thompson in third at least, because Rudy plays more minutes, and he is a kind of a more central figure to what the Timberwolves do defensively. When Rudy is on the floor, they are a top 2 defense in the league. When he is off the floor, they're in the bottom, I think, 3 or 4 in the league. And so his individual impact on what the Timberwolves do defensively when he's on versus when he's off is certainly greater than what Ausar Thompson is. And so I would have no problem with Rudy as the third place vote getter, or even the second place. Chet is an awesome defensive player surrounded by other awesome defensive players on an awesome defensive team. And so you could argue, if you want to argue Rudy second, you would say, because he has the most individual impact on how good the team is defensively. And so you could say that. But certainly I think in the top 3 is a reasonable gripe for Rudy to have. And I think the fact that it was such a distant fourth from Thompson is what really kind of bothered Rudy, and really bothered a lot of the Timberwolves people. Is like, look, he is much, much more important than what people are kind of recognizing with our defense.
I'm really intrigued by what Finch is going to do with the bench the rest of the series. Bones bounced back, had a good game 2 after not doing anything in game 1. Conley's still getting out there. Kyle Anderson looks like he doesn't want to ever play. Kyle Anderson looks like he wants to play Iowa girls high school basketball from the old days and just stay on the defensive end. Don't go across midcourt. And as much as we love everything Kyle does for this team, and as much as you like to have another big defender out there and a very good defender, I'm going to go Jaden McDaniels here and say, you put Terrence Shannon Jr. out there against those defenders, he's going to need braces on his wrists. He's going to dunk so often.
Yeah, I think we talked at the start of this series about how important it was going to be for Chris Finch to be flexible going through it and react on the fly and be willing to change if things were not working. I thought Finch had a great game 2 because one thing that I quibbled with him about on game 1 was he played Bones 5 minutes in the first half, and Bones was not very good. And didn't go back to him in the third quarter when the offense just fell apart. And I thought that would have been a time to give Bones another chance just to see if he hit a 3 or 2, got out in transition and scored and could kind of like just get the offense going a little bit. And to Finch's credit, he did get Bones back out there in the second half after Bones had 3 fouls in like 4 minutes in the first half. Bones made a few threes, which was good in the first half, but he had a bunch of fouls. And so Finch went back to him, and Bones had a huge stretch, end of the third, start of the fourth, that gave Ant a little bit of rest, and that allowed the Wolves to continue to score and just kind of stay in the game. And so that was a really good adjustment by Finch. But I am still too, Jim, waiting for the Terrence Shannon moment. I think there's going to be one in this series where the offense does stagnate, where things are not working, and then it's like, hey, get out there and throw your shoulder into someone and dunk on them. Because you're right, like the Nuggets have nothing at the rim. There is no resistance whatsoever. Jokic has been a turnstile. Anytime that they can seek him out and get him one-on-one in a little bit of space, they are by him in a blink. And they don't have much on the perimeter either. Brown is not bad on the perimeter, but Hardaway, Murray, all these guys are non-factors. What is going to be required of this team to win this series is an incredible amount of discipline to keep going to the rim, not settling. What we saw at the end of the second quarter, Jim, in game 2 was this team giving into its worst demons, which is they're up by 8 points, and then Naz Reid takes an early shot clock 3. Julius Randle takes a 3 over Hardaway when he could have just run him right over and got to the rim, and Ant pulls up for a mid-range shot when he could have gone to the rim. And then all of a sudden it's an 8-0 run for the Nuggets to finish the half, and you're back in a battle rather than getting that to 10 or 12 points and really having some breathing room. And so I think will be sometimes this series where it's whoever is on the court is not being disciplined enough in attacking, or is just tired and doesn't have the energy. Give Shannon, give Bones a little bit more time, give Io a little bit more time, and just say, guys, if you don't attack the rim, you're coming right out of the game. And just do it that way, just for little stretches here and there. I think we're going to need to see that from the Timberwolves if they are going to win. And so it will be fascinating to see how Finch tries to sprinkle those little moments in during the series, because they're going to be needed.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right. Time for some praise here. Julius Randle, terrible game 1. He did bounce back. I guess the confusing thing for those of us on the outside is, okay, yeah, after game 1, he gets with Chris Hines and they talk about what he's done better. And he says, you got to get in there and be more physical and do what you do better. Why did he need to fail in game 1 to realize that? That's just so obviously his game and his role.
Yeah, I don't know. Jim is the answer, and I don't know that anybody does, including Julius Randle. It looked like he needed. It looked like he was feeling this series out. He has not played the Nuggets in a playoff series. And so I think he came into it and thought it was going to be one way, and it wasn't. And I think that the film session on Sunday was really kind of geared towards showing everyone, including Randle, the importance of not only being physical on offense, but also showing more spirit and heart on defense. And then, it was really interesting to hear Julius Randle talk after the game too about, yes, Chris Hines and the role that he played in getting him focused on it, but also what he saw from Anthony Edwards and knowing that Ant is grinding through this injury and how much it kind of resonated with Julius of like, man, he is hurting a lot. I've got to come to the battle as well. And so I think one very underrated part of Julius's game 2 was his first quarter, those first 6 minutes. He hit 2 threes in that stretch, and that's when everything else was going wrong. It was like 24-11, and Randle had 2 threes. It very easily could have been 24-5. That's how bad the Wolves were offensively in that stretch. And by the grace of God, Julius, who has been shooting really poorly from 3, hit a couple of threes just to keep the game from getting completely out of hand. And then very smartly after that, he sort of put the 3 on the shelf and said, I'm going to the basket. I am going to put my shoulder into Aaron Gordon. I'm going to make my presence felt around the rim. And that's how I'm going to do my damage. And he did that. And it was a repeatable source of production for the offense that they desperately, desperately needed. And so now you ask yourself, like, can Julius do it again? Like, is that what he is capable of night in and night out? We saw him do it last year in the playoffs. He's going to absolutely have to do it again, game 3, game 4, however long this goes, to give this team a chance to win.
Let's get to Donte DiVincenzo. Want to let everybody know, congratulations to our new Vice President of Business Development, Tammy Henderson. She can be reached at thenderson@talknorth.com if you want to get involved in sponsoring advertising with any of our many very popular shows, including this one. Let's get to Donte. I thought he was just fantastic in game 2. He did everything.
Plus 20 and a 5-point win.
Yeah, and the only Wolf over plus 6.
Yep, and this was the quintessential Donte DiVincenzo performance. Yeah, of course he hit threes, and that big 3 at the end was great. But that for me was sort of just icing on the cake for what Donte has brought, really in the first 2 games, but especially in 2. I mean, this sort of bat out of hell defensive intensity, hustle, fiber, substance, whatever word you want to use to describe it. I mean, that's what he is. He is the guy in the town who you go to and say, Donte, I'm in trouble. We got to go hurt some people. And I can't even tell you why we're doing it. We just got to do it. And he says, whose car are we going to take? That. This is the guy who
this took a dark turn.
Hey, that's what it is, man. This is a dark series. If you're going to win, that's what it's going to take. And he is the wingman that you want by your side the whole way through. And he's a winning player. Obviously, when he's making his shot, it takes him to another level of impact, but he is so consistent in his level of effort and his energy and his intensity. That makes him unique on this team. This team's kind of overall competitiveness, I think, waxes and wanes, but Donte's never does. And what he was able to do in tone setting and helping that team scratch back from 19 down is why he's going to get paid a tremendous amount of money, whether it's here or elsewhere. And it's going to be just, he's invaluable to what they do on a nightly basis with everything that he brings to the table, but mostly just this saltiness and this willingness to get into the fight. For a team that sometimes you're just like, hey, wake up. Are you in this or not? Donte's always in it.
My favorite play of the night from him was 3 Nuggets, offensive rebounding. They're going to get an easy bucket, and Donte comes out of nowhere and taps it to a teammate, leading a break the other way. It's like probably a 4-point turnaround on just one effort play.
Yeah, his willingness to get into the fray on a rebounding kind of aspect is amazing. Like, he's so competitive. I don't know if he's 6'4", 6'5", but
or 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah, but he leaps into the pile with reckless abandon, and he doesn't care about his body. He doesn't care about what that's going to take. And I think about even in game 1 where they didn't get the ball eventually, but it's 3-on-1 against him. They make a pass. He jumps 40 inches in the air and breaks up the pass and knocks it toward the sideline.
Yep.
He has that. So the other part about him is, like, he is super athletic. Like,
yeah, he not only jumps high, he jumps quickly.
Yes. So he's a white dude that shoots, but one of the reasons that he gets his hands on rebounds, that he does block shots and things like that, is because the guy can get up off of the ground. And so just that combination of athleticism and fighting spirit, it makes him a playoff player. Like, he is, there's the long saying, are you an 82 game player or are you a 16 game player? Which meaning you need 16 wins in the playoffs. And Donte DiVincenzo is a 16 game player for sure.
2 more things we want to get to. One, non-Timberwolves, then we'll wrap up the show with our Twitter question sponsored by sglambchops.com. Tell us what's going on in Portland right now.
It's really interesting, Jim, because Portland recently changed hands ownership-wise. Tom Dundon, who owns the Carolina Hurricanes as well in the NHL, has brought sort of the NHL financial sensibility, or whatever you want to say, to the NBA, and he is, like, cutting costs, in a major way. He's talked about he has not taken practice squad players on the road with them to the playoffs. The only team that doesn't do that, two-way G League players, with them. He's pushing staffers to get out of the hotel early so that they avoid penalties for early checkouts. There's already some discussion that is, I think, under dispute a little bit about, well, I don't need to pay my head coach that much because we actually think that's overvalued. And so there's just a lot of real severe cost-cutting measures, and it has been an absolute nightmare for his ownership group to this be their first impression of how he's going to run the ship there. And maybe over the long haul, some of these things will settle down and it will be, okay. But, I think that Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez have had their sort of finances really scrutinized in their early days of ownership of this group. We've talked about some of the changes that they've made to the business side of the organization, some of the layoffs that happened there, ticket price increases and things of that nature. But one thing that we really haven't heard anything about is their investment on the basketball side. The basketball side has largely remained untouched, and there's been a few things here or there, but I think that by and large, the basketball side of the operation, it has really believed that, okay, like, we are supported. We have the means to make trades, to we have the resources to do what we need to do. And I think that really allows for a much cleaner, smoother transition from one owner to another than what you're looking at here. I mean, the other thing that the owner is doing is interviewing coaching candidates for a position that is currently filled by Tiago Splitter, and they're in a playoff series. And so, like, he's just really misreading the room, I think, on how to act. And I do think it has an effect on everyone in the organization. And so it's just been very interesting to see the choppiness that has happened in that transfer of ownership and how quickly things get out when these things happen. I mean, I think that he may be a little caught off guard. The NHL might not be as gossipy as the NBA. Like if you're an ownership group and you're not investing in the players and in the organization, people will talk, and it will get out, and it will get around the league and everything like that. And so it's actually a good case study for any new owner, not just Laurie and Rodriguez, but any new owner to look at and say, okay, I better be a little bit more cognizant of managing the message and of being invested early in all of these things, or else I'm going to end up looking bad. And Tom Dundon right now, it isn't looking great.
Good stuff, John. Let's get to our Twitter question sponsored by sglambchops.com. And I'm still loving their sweatpants and t-shirts, by the way.
This is a good one from John Solwald. Does bulletin board material really impact games? Referring to Jaden McDaniels' comments. And I think sometimes it does. I really do think that. Like that kind of inflammatory rhetoric it's been all over ESPN and all over social media the last 2 days, and it could serve to soak some fires in the Nuggets. And, when you think about what a team does to play defense, a lot of it is will and heart and effort and energy and hustle. Certainly there's talent involved in it, but the risk that Jaden had in kind of delivering that message was that it is going to stoke that fire, and you're going to see a more connected, concerted effort on the Nuggets' part to prove him wrong and to show everyone else that, hey, we know what we're doing, and we really are not a bad defensive team. But I think this Game 3 will be a great litmus test for that, because there may be just a physical ceiling on this Nuggets team that, like Jaden said, it doesn't matter. We're more athletic. If we get to the rim, we're going to score over them, and that's all that there is to it. They can't do anything about it. And so I think Game 3 is important in that way. If the Nuggets do not respond to that bullying, that kind of insulting that Jaden did, then I really do think that the Wolves have the ability to really get on top of this series and kind of break their spirit a little bit. But if the Nuggets respond with a frenetic energy on defense and really turn up the heat and kind of deliver a decisive win, I wonder if, maybe Jaden will think, maybe I went a little bit too far and we better bounce back here. So I think that we have seen in the past where bulletin board does have a real effect. If that team is able to summon the response, it is possible that the Denver Nuggets just are unathletic enough that they can't do anything about it. But Game 3 will be a real test for that.
The other possibility is the Nuggets ramp up their defensive effort and activity, but because they're not really good technical defenders, that just leads to more fouling.
That could, yeah. It leads to more fouling. Or the other part of it, Jim, too, is that could take away some more energy from them offensively.
Right.
If Jokic is having to do more, if Murray is having to do more, we already saw that they got worn out, in the fourth quarter in Game 2, and they didn't play any defense at all. What happens when they are having to be more concerted on the defensive end? And we heard David Allman before Game 2 say, like, they want to make Anthony Edwards work on the defensive end so that he doesn't have as much energy for all of the responsibility as offensively. That could be the flip side for Denver, is we have to put so much effort into the defensive end because we are so limited as defensive players that then takes away from our effectiveness offensively, and maybe even more of those shots are flat. In the fourth quarter, maybe we have a little more trouble scoring. So all of those things are possibilities, and we'll just have to see how it all shakes out. It should be. I can't wait. The atmosphere is going to be crazy, and and you're going to see, I think, a real, even more of an edge between these two teams, courtesy of Jaden McDaniels, and it'll be super fun.
The least appreciated rivalry in the NBA resumes Thursday night. It's going to be a blast. Thanks to everyone who listens. Thanks to all of our sponsors who make this possible. Our staff at TalkNorth.com, including our producer, Davide Rosso. We'll talk to you next week, and there'll be something interesting to talk about.